everyone, welcome to Doing Dental School. My name is Kajal Khatri. I'm a senior at Marquette University and I just got into dental school. So I wanted to create this platform just to create sort of a virtual mentorship where we can all help each other achieve our goals. So if you want to stick around, make sure you subscribe and make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Today we're talking all about personal statements. I know that this is a dental school related channel. However, this video can really apply to a lot of different professions, including medical school, obviously dental school, and then some other professional and graduate schools. So we're going to start by talking about just what even is a personal statement, because that can give you some direction on just where to go from here. Then we're going to talk about how do you write that first sentence, because that's probably the scariest part of just actually starting and writing. And lastly, I'm going to just give some general tips that really helped me throughout my process and some things that I wish I would have known during my personal statement process. So what is a personal statement? When you look it up on Google, it'll tell you that a personal statement is a statement of purpose. So it's telling the admissions committee, what is your purpose in pursuing this profession? Why do you want to be a dentist? Why do you want to be a medical doctor? Why do you want to be whatever profession you're trying to pursue? What's your purpose in pursuing it? And it shows the admissions committee a lot of things. So it can show the admissions committee your personality. It can show them your passion for the profession. It shows your just simple English literacy and writing skills. It can show them a lot of things that are beyond what's already on your application, which is why the personal statement is so important. All right, so now we're going to get into just how do you even start writing the personal statement, because it's such a big thing. Like, I feel like it was a mountain that I needed to climb and accomplish and get over. And it honestly shouldn't be like that. You should really look at it as something that's really going to help your application. And it's really just a little embellishment on your application that makes you a real person. So my first tip in how to get started in the personal statement writing process is to start early. And I don't mean, start writing your body paragraphs like a year in advance, all of that stuff. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that when you have an idea for your personal statement, write it down on your phone. Just simply use the Notes app, and when inspiration strikes, just write it down and write down little ideas that you have here and there. So maybe you're shadowing and you have this really cool experience and you're like, you know what, this confirmed my belief that I need to be a dentist, and this is why I am pursuing this profession. Write it down. Write it down, because it's going to be useful when you're writing your personal statement. It'll give you ideas as you're trying to brainstorm what you're actually going to talk about. So now getting more into just how to actually begin the writing process, I would say treat it like this is an high school English paper. So, you remember in English when you would start and your teacher would make you first write down ideas on a note card. And then you would have to turn those in. And then you would create an outline from these note cards. And then you would create your first draft from the outline. And then you would create a second draft. And then you go through the peer review process and, you get graded on all of these things. Obviously, you're not getting graded on all of these steps, but treat it as if it was an English project. So start by just writing down your ideas. Make a list. I still have my document of all of these ideas that I had listed down, and I didn't use all of them, but it was just a ton of ideas that I put down on this document. And then I created an outline, and then I created a first draft and a second draft and a third draft, and I showed it to a friend, and I showed it to other people that I trusted, and I went through that peer review process, and I edited and edited and edited, and finally I had this final draft that was like my personal statement, and it was beautiful. And I know that this sounds kind of crazy, because when you write your first draft, you'll feel like it is perfect and it is pure perfection because you worked so hard on it. And I'm sure you did work so hard on it. I remember I poured my heart and soul into that first draft. But it's not perfect. I promise you. You need to go through all of these steps in order to have the perfect personal statement, or at least what's perfect in your eyes. So I know it's really scary to be, like after you write your first draft, to go through and be like, okay, this might not look the same afterwards. It's really scary, but just trust the process and go through these steps because it's going to make your personal statement so much better. So I created a little list of questions just for you to ask yourself as you begin your personal statement writing process. So what I would recommend is maybe just pause this video after I ask each question and just think to yourself, maybe write some things down just so that you can get the ball rolling in your head. So my first question that I want you to ask yourself is, why do you want to pursue this profession? The second question I would ask you is, what aspects of this profession have drawn you to it and make you know that this is the profession for you? The third question that I would ask you is, what aspects of this profession do you really love? And what aspects do you not love? And then the last question that I would have you ask yourself is, what experiences and accomplishments have been so meaningful to you that you feel prepared to apply right now? So the reason that I had you go through that and the reasons that I wanted you to ask yourself those questions is because that's how I created my idea of what I wrote about in my personal statement. I remember that I wrote down all of these ideas, all of the meaningful experiences that I've had, all the things that I like doing as hobbies, all the things that I really love about dentistry. I created a list of that and I related each thing, if it wasn't already related to dentistry, I related it to dentistry. And I found common themes. And that's how I created kind of my thesis for my personal statement, is I created and I found common themes in all of these aspects and all of these meaningful experiences that I've had. And I chose 3 of them that were really, really prominent. And that's what I wrote about in my personal statement. All right, so now I'm just gonna go through just some general tips that I have of things that really helped me while I was writing my personal statement, but then also some things that I honestly just wish I knew as I was writing my personal statement. So the first thing I would say is that think of your personal statement as, if this is the only thing that someone knew about me and the only thing that someone read about me, would this be enough to get me into dental school? And the reason I say this is because I didn't know this at the time, but a lot of the interviews that you do with schools, many schools only give your personal statement to the interviewer. And it's called a closed file interview, where they don't see your grades, they don't see your DAT score, they don't see your experiences and your employment and your research, they don't see any of that. All they see is your personal statement, and then they come and interview you and they write an evaluation on you. And so if this is the only thing that someone read about you, make sure that this is enough to convince an admissions committee or show an admissions committee your passion for your profession. So my next tip would be to use the Writing Center at your university. So I know some universities have people that are specific for personal statements, or people who specifically work with science and pre-health students, but some schools don't have that. My school definitely didn't, but it was still really helpful to meet with the Writing Center, because this person didn't know anything about dentistry, this person didn't know anything about what I was going for, but they were able to see how passionate I was through my personal statement. And that's really important, because that's one thing that you're trying to convey through your personal statement, is how passionate you are about the profession. This person also is kind of just a fresh set of eyes, so they make sure, specifically for grammar and like English and that type of stuff, they are trained to look for that stuff, and they know all of the grammar rules and all of that. So that's a good way to just make sure that there are no simple little like comma errors or spelling mistakes in your personal statement. And it also makes sure that whatever you're trying to convey through a sentence or whatever you're trying to communicate, that that's actually going through. So maybe, a sentence makes sense to you, but when the person at the Writing Center reads it, it doesn't make sense. So it's a good way to just have a check of all of that stuff. All right, so my next tip would be to show your personal statement to other people in your life and have them read over it and give you feedback. I do say this with a grain of salt, however. Make sure, in this case, it's kind of just a quality over quantity thing. So don't show your personal statement to everybody under the sun and don't get feedback from everybody under the sun, but show it to a few select people who you know are going to give you good feedback. It's not really helpful to you to show your personal statement to people and have them just be like, oh, it's good, it's fine, it's amazing. Because that's not helpful. That's not why you're showing it to them. You are showing your personal statement to people to get honest feedback. That being said, don't take that feedback personally. They're not trying to attack you. They're not trying to make you feel bad about your writing skills. They're trying to help you. So all of that being said, my next tip would be just remember that your personal statement is yours and it's personal. So if you get feedback from someone and you don't want to change that thing, don't change it. I guess what I would say is that sometimes I got feedback from people and I just didn't like the feedback and didn't want to listen to the feedback because I knew it was going to change everything up and that I would have to rearrange my whole personal statement. But I guess in some cases, I thought that that was going to be helpful. And so I did it. And even though it was feedback that I didn't like, I still rearranged because I knew it would be better for me in the long run. But if someone tells you something and you just don't agree with what they said, or you don't think it's going to make your personal statement any better, or it's not going to improve your personal statement, then don't listen to them because it is your personal statement. It is yours and it is personal, so make sure it is yours and personal. All right, so my next tip, again, this one has a grain of salt as well, is to make yourself stand out, but the grain of salt would be make sure you're being honest. So this is your opportunity to make sure that your application stands out from other people's. So everyone applying, has service experience and they've done research and they have good grades and they have a good DAT score. So your personal statement is a little bit of your personality and is a way for you to stand out. But with that being said, and with making yourself stand out, make sure that you're also being honest and being truthful. You don't want to just say what the admissions committee wants to hear because honestly, you don't know what the admissions committee wants to hear. So don't just lie and, say that you've always wanted to be a dentist because I promise you did not enter the world and know that you want to be a dentist. You weren't, 1 year old and thinking, yeah, I want to stick my hands in people's mouths. So be honest and be truthful, but also make sure you're standing out. So I guess my example with this would be, I know the classic story for dentists is that, you went to the orthodontist with super crooked teeth and then they were able to fix your smile and that's what inspired you to be a dentist. And I know that's a really classic story, but if it's your story, own it. It is your story. That's why you want to be a dentist. That's what led you to the profession. So talk about it in your personal statement, but just make sure you talk about it in a way that makes you unique. So, maybe add a little bit more to the story or tell a story in a creative way. That would be just a way to make yourself stand out while also telling your story. So my next tip would be to show and not tell. And this is a tip that you'll honestly hear throughout the entire application process, but the reason you hear it so many times is because it's important and it's a really, really good tip. So just remember that actions speak louder than words. So instead of saying, oh, I'm really passionate about service, share a meaningful experience that you've had with service that makes you passionate about service. Don't just say, oh, I really, love dentistry. Share a meaningful experience that you've had that drew you to dentistry and makes you know that you're really passionate about dentistry. This is just a way for you to share with the admissions committee different experiences and accomplishments that you've had that make you equipped to go to this professional school. So my next tip would be to start with the body paragraphs. And I know this is kind of a weird, one-off tip, and it doesn't work for everyone, but I would definitely consider trying it. I think that we all put so much pressure on that first sentence. Like ever since elementary school, we've always been taught, hey, like make sure you have a hook and make sure you have this captivating first sentence that really grabs your reader's attention. And that's a lot of pressure to just start with that, to start with the hook. So start with your body paragraphs, start with the less pressure stuff, figure out what you're going to talk about, write all of your body paragraphs, and then go back to that introduction and then write your first sentence. Then, create that hook based on what you've already written, because there's less pressure on it. You're already writing, you're already, into the process, and you know what you're talking about, so that it's easier to create that hook and that attention grabbing first sentence. And then my last tip would be to save all of your drafts. And I know it's time consuming and it's kind of tedious to create a new draft every time you change something, but especially when you're making big changes like taking out a whole paragraph or changing up a whole paragraph, it's important to create a new draft, because maybe, 3 or 4 drafts down the line, you're going to remember that first draft and what you said in this one paragraph in that first draft, and you're going to want to go back to it. And if you don't have a copy of it, you're going to have to rewrite it and you're kind of going to be at a loss. So make sure you create a new draft every time you change something. It's just a good practice and a good habit to create, especially throughout this personal statement writing process. All right, so I think those are all of my tips for personal statements. I know that this is a lot of information to kind of take in, and it's a really overwhelming process, but just take it step by step. Kind of go through, as I said at the beginning, go through it as if it was an English paper, and you'll be all good to go. I promise it's not as scary as you think. Also, just remember that I am by no means an expert. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I have learned a lot through writing my own personal statement and going through this process myself. I did use a lot of resources when I was writing my personal statement. A lot of those resources included, especially, I remember the DAT Bootcamp personal statement video was really helpful. Also the ADIA website. So I'll try to find some of these resources that I used and link them down below. And as always, if you have any additional tips or things that I didn't mention in this video, make sure to just leave a comment down below. As always, I'm trying to create an environment where we're all helping each other and that we're giving tips to each other and helping all of us achieve our own goals. And so just make sure to leave a tip, or if you have a question, make sure to leave it down below and I will be happy to answer it. Hopefully in the future, I would also really love to make a video of just me reading my first draft of my personal statement and then my final draft of my personal statement, just to show you guys just how much it changed and how much changed throughout my entire process. So if you would like to see that video, or if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to join the Doing Dental School family, make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.